Good evening, everybody. It's great to be with you. I'm recording this with my house group, with Molly and Andrew and Gordon and Jess and Beth and Max all sat with me, so it's wonderful. It's kind of nice to be able to do it in a more real setting in some ways. I've been very blessed to be at house group, and it's been really meaningful for me for many, many months, and I hope it is for you too. Before we do anything more, just you can have a little wiggle if you want to. Does anybody want to have a wiggle? Wiggle your fingers, and everybody feeling good? Okay, your wiggles are out. Get your wiggles out. It's good to get your wiggles out. We've been going through the Beatitudes, or some people call them the Beatitudes. I grew up calling them the Beatitudes, so I'm sure that that's the best way to refer to them. I'm just going to read them through, okay? Matthew 5, starting at verse 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Jonathan Luker last week made such a good point that these last two Beatitudes are really the fruit in some ways of the first. So if you live a life for God, there's going to be some consequences. There's going to be some pushback. When I first came across these, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be talking about verse 10 or verse 11, because for some reason in my mind, I always kind of considered them to be the same. I thought that it was a repeat of the same beatitude. Blessed are those who are persecuted. That word is used twice. But actually, when you read it carefully, it's not a repeat of the same thing. It's two different beatitudes. The first one is, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness. And it says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then the second one says, blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me, because of Jesus. Because great is your reward in heaven. So the first has to do with being persecuted for doing what's right, for being good, for not cheating on your taxes. If you bump into a car, to write a note and say it was me, and then you get fined. And so if we do the right thing, sometimes it doesn't go well for us. And so that first one in verse 10 is about saying that there is a blessing for you, that you are blessed. And it's because you are being part of the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven, when it's talked about, particularly in the book of Matthew, is talking about God's way of doing things and God's reign. So anywhere that God is king, that Jesus is king, is the kingdom of heaven, is the kingdom of God. And so when we do what is right, we are blessed because we are being part of God's kingdom. We're being part of bringing about the rule of God on earth. And then we move on to this last one in verse 11. And there's a shift. There's another shift. It says, all the others have been, blessed are a certain group of people. Blessed are the poor. Blessed are the meek. And this last one, it says, blessed are you. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you. This is a much more personal blessing. Blessed are you, Andrew. Blessed are you, Gordon. Blessed are you, Max. And what an amazing thought to receive this as Jesus speaking directly to you, not just a generic group of people, not just, oh, what a nice thought. It's a truism. Blessed are the peacemakers. Oh, it's good to be a peacemaker. This is a much more personal blessing. I just want to tell you real briefly how I kind of prepared for tonight. It was very simple. I was loosely acquainted with the passage, and so I read it. And then what I've done is what I've got here is a Greek and NIV interlinear Bible. I do not speak Greek, but what it does is it has the words, and then it has their literal translation, and then it has above it has their Greek word. And so then what I was able to do is I have this as a Vine's dictionary of New Testament words, and so then I looked up that word in the dictionary, and then I can understand that word. I don't know any Greek, and I've never been taught any Greek, but just with the aid of a few books, I've found my way around, and that's something that anybody can do. I'm not in any way special for understanding some of these things. So let's go through this verse 11 a little bit together, okay? Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. First of all, let's look at that word blessed. The word there actually the root is the word makros, or enlarge, or big, or from where we get words like maximum. And the other way it's translated oftentimes throughout the New Testament is happy. So it's the same word as happy. Happy are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you. It's an adjective. Sometimes the word is found as a verb. Sometimes the word is found as a noun. It's an adjective. It's an adjective in every single one of the Beatitudes except for the first one. In the first one, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's a verb. Now, I don't understand exactly what that means, but it's interesting that it's happy are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Put my phone away. But anyway, it's an adjective, so it's a describing word here in verse 11. Happy are you when people insult you. Do you feel happy when people insult you? Happy are you when people persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you. This isn't fair. This isn't kind. And it's very specific. When they say all kinds of evil and they persecute you because of me. This is a specific promise for Jesus followers. So, blessed are you, happy are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you. In Acts chapter 5, it says the apostles left the Sanhedrin rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name. Greatly rejoicing because of suffering. We find this also in Hebrews chapter 10. It talks about how when a group of Christians were in prison, and so the Christians who weren't in prison took gifts to them to take care of the people in prison. And it describes those people. It says, you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property. So the people who took the gifts to the people in the church, in prison, had their property plundered. It says you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property because you knew that you had a better possession and an abiding one, which is what we read here in this. It says, rejoice and be glad because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is radical and countercultural. The idea that we could be happy when we're being insulted and persecuted. The idea that we could actually feel a sense of rejoicing when we are being mistreated. But that's what it says is true. This is an adjective. This is a describing word of people who are being persecuted. There's a passage which I think helps us understand how this could be possible. Shakespeare once wrote the St. Crispin's Day speech, and it says this, and Crispin shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered, we few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. But be he ne'er so vile, This day shall gentle his condition, and gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed that they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. What he's saying is, better to have fought and died for what was good and right than to have stayed in bed back in England. And what could be greater than to live for Jesus? And so there can be a sense of joy in trial and in hardship, because we know that it's the right thing and we know that it's worth it. In many ways, it doesn't make sense outside of heaven. How could it be a happy thing to have all your goods plundered? But because of Jesus and because of the reward of heaven, it's worth it. Now, this is something that is a truth that I think we need to pray into existence in our hearts. It's not something that we can go, oh, okay, fine, I shall believe that. It's a challenge to actually feel different, to actually feel like it would be good. There's been a few times in my life when something hard has happened and I've done the right thing. And I must say that I don't regret it one bit. And I would sooner have been in those difficult times doing what's right than sat in a jacuzzi. Because deep in your bones, you feel joy and you feel happy. So, blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Blessed are you. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Why don't we spend some time being honest about how we feel about being mistreated and asking Jesus that we would feel differently about it, that we would actually somehow feel joy at the prospect of persecution. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.